Hi, I'm Karen MacNeil, and welcome to WineSpeed.com's People to Know Insider Interviews with the most fascinating and important people in the wine business. And today we're here with John Caldwell, who is the founder and owner of Caldwell Vineyards in Coombsville in the Napa Valley, and in fact one of the first vintners in modern times to realize the wine potential of that region, sort of which is on the side of a volcanic caldera, actually. John, welcome. And, in the 1960s, you started a shoe business here in the Napa Valley in the little town of Yountville, but ultimately moved into the wine business. That's not exactly the career path you'd think for a lot of people. How'd you go from shoes to wine?
Well, I looked out it was actually 1970 that I started the shoe store. And that was in Yountville. And Yountville at that time was starting to become a tourist destination in Napa Valley. It's hard for people viewing today to realize that during the 70s, Napa was not the Napa that you know today. And property on the hillsides at that time was quite inexpensive. People weren't even really viewing it as viticulture. So one day I asked a realtor if they could find a rundown piece of property in the hillside, and she said, John, I've got something listed in Coombsville. So on a rainy day in 1974, we drove out, and it was not showing well. It had been in the cruiser family for about 100 years. And it had not had any repairs on the fences of the house, the roofs, and everything was just in bad shape. So it didn't show well. Nobody's even offering on it. And banks wouldn't even loan money on a piece of property like that back then. Okay. So, but I looked at it and I thought, I could fix it with 3 houses. And it was listed for $120,000.
No.
$120,000.
Oh, no.
Well, there was some money back then. But she needed 20% down, $24,000. And I didn't have 24. That was a lot of money. I had $5,000 in my shoe store. I could steal it out of my, accounts payable. And I offered that to her for the down payment. She took it. So in 1974, I bought 54 acres in Napa with 3 houses. And then I was just going to subdivide it. It was going to be a real estate deal. And the county, I applied for a lot split, and built a road, and then the county went into a moratorium. And that area of the valley, where it's off the valley floor, became pretty much 40-acre minimum. Mm-hmm. So that screwed up to my lot split. And of course, I would never tell those guys down at the county. They did me the biggest favor of my life by not allowing me to have a lot split. It turned into something. By 80, I had to figure out something to do with the property. And I had a bunch of friends, in the business at the time that were looking for Chardonnay. And Coombsville was supposed to be cool enough. That's what you should be planting, not reds,
right,
but Chardonnay.
Yeah.
So I went to the bank and I borrowed about $130,000. And I was paying 16%.
Oh, ooh.
On a farm loan where, you don't get a check for 5 years.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a very good business deal.
Yeah,
But I fell in love with the project in 1981 on an April day. It was one of these beautiful Napa Valley springtime days. And I was climbed up on a D6 tractor. We had a D8, D7, and a D6, and the D8 was getting the rippers down on this hillside and creating a lot of rock. It's because it's volcanic.
It's
right?
volcanic, exactly.
Volcanic. And so they called me to come out. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Rapping like this? Okay. So they called me to come out, and I drove out in my black Cadillac because I was in the shoe business, and I used to travel to New York and Paris and sometimes in Milano. And, you had to look
good.
You had to look good. And I remember not wanting to get my shoes and pants dirty as I climbed up on a D6. And Abru was driving it. And he says, John, you know, we're getting the rippers down. You could have a good project here. And I said, what are you talking? Because nobody gave me thumbs up.
Right.
It was just, nobody would. So I said, well, show me. So he put the thing in gear, and we went down the property line, turned around, and came back. And it was one of, like I say, one of those beautiful April days. And the smell of fresh earth coming up, you know, I can still see it. The day, and I started really looking at what I had. You know, when you're going to sell something, you don't even think about it too much. You don't get attached to it. Well, that morning, I became a winemaker.
Yeah.
Or a wine grower, not a winemaker, but a wine grower that morning.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it. So it wasn't very long after that, I sold a Cadillac, bought an old pickup, bought a four-wheel drive Ford. My dad and I bought a rock picker and a rock rake, and we started developing the property.
And off you went. Well, you know, you did, I think, originally plant a little bit of Chardonnay, but then
We did.
You quickly decided that really you really wanted to plant Cabernet, and I know you were perhaps advised wrong about the necessity to plant Chardonnay, but what was it about Cabernet that you felt, now wait a minute, this is the grape I want to plant?
Well, Chardonnay never was something that I was attached to. And when I was in San Francisco, you know, you start drinking wine, and of course you mostly drank reds. Then when I moved to Yountville in '70, it's, you know, people were starting to make some really good stuff. Mondavi had opened up his tasting room. There was some new wineries, and everybody was talking about reds and Bordeaux's. And I paid a guy in '82 to take me to France because I wanted to know what the French guys were doing. And by that time, I did the right thing. I put 2 hydrothermographs, 1980, 81 out in where we're planting the vineyard. And those, you know, track the highs and lows.
Of temperature.
Well, of temperature.
Uh-huh.
And I was working with John McKay, who, you know, was a very successful winemaker here for many, many years. And John at the time took all the records for 2 years and compared it to the firehouse at the hospital, because they had records going all the way back to 20s and 30s, I think. And we found out that we're only about 2 degrees warmer than the hospital. You do the total, and we were warmer than Bordeaux.
Wow.
Well, what the hell am I planting Chardonnay for?
Yeah.
Plus, of course, I liked Bordeaux's. I remember Aubryon was, even though I could hardly ever afford it, but that was my first real love of a red wine, was Aubryon. And so from then on, I was just going to plant reds. And I wanted to plant all 5 to start with. So Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Malbec.
Yeah, yeah. Now you have, of course, this quite remarkable story of smuggling, which is a long story. But I'm wondering just what you took away from that experience, what you learned from that experience, other than, like, don't get caught, I suppose, is part of what one learns. But what were you left with? I mean, it seems like you...
That's a really good question, because everybody really wants to know the smuggling part and getting caught and getting on the front page of the papers and all that kind of stuff. That really, I mean, it's a great story for many years now, but that's not what was cool about it. Remember I told you I went to France in '82?
Right.
All right. Gallo took me to Aubryon. Okay. I got to meet the people involved in Aubryon. They took us into a room that was 2 or 3 times this size, and they had set it up for their clonal research. So that was my first, well, what is this? Clone? So they gave me some information, and I took it to my hotel room, and man, I said, whatever these guys are doing, I want to do. So that's what started my whole process of trying to get clones into the United States from France. All right. If you do it legally, it takes 7 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I did do it legally 10 years later and brought in the ENTAV collection. It takes 7 years to do it. So the only reason I smuggled them in, and I contacted Davis, if there was any way I could bring in 1 or 2 buds, you know, and do do, this was before they had very sophisticated virus testings, and I said, no, you got to go through the 2. I know, okay. All right. So it took 2 years to set the thing up, got it here, and eventually planted about 4,300 vines in the summer of '84. They were very good vines through Canada. We made wine in 86 of Cab Franc, and a little bit of Merlot. Well, as soon as we made it, everybody involved in my little, and we made it at California. I don't know if you remember when it was on Manly
right.
Lane. I think it was on Manly. And we didn't even buy new oak or anything. It was just funky stuff. We didn't know what we were doing, but it was good. That's what I learned that first year when it was wine, that, wow, clones are really important. Mm-hmm. So that's when I just grabbed hold of it, learned everything I could possibly do.
And it was because various clones have different flavors, and it was flavor you were after.
Well, we were yet flavor and complexity. It's what I learned from the French was that, let's say you have 100 mother vines. A clone comes from one single mother vine, okay? And you got 100 mother vines in a trial. And let's say 10 out of that 100 continue, after 10 or 12 years, continue to make better wine than these guys in the same plot, right?
Right.
So they got to know which ones genetically made better wine.
Right.
They weren't better cropping and all that kind of stuff. They made better wine. Okay. So that's all I was out for, was to make the best darn possible Bordeaux that you can. And that just drove me, just pulled me right into that hole. And then eventually, we imported, now it's over 100 clones are in the program here in California from the ENTAV program. And I was the guy who went to France, negotiated the contract, and brought the first ones in.
Right. You had that first licensing agreement. And because you also had a nursery at that time, so other people could buy from you, right?
Good point. And then I got into the nursery. And at that time, I was just, I loved just the knowledge of learning from the French, trying to apply that to whatever we knew here in California. Got to see a lot of the state, got to see Oregon, got to see Washington. So it was a great time as a viticulturist like I was, or a grower. It was a wonderful time to just learn.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you also have, you also do something that many wineries don't do, which is you have your own cooper, meaning your own person who builds barrels just for you, and he's a master cooper. Almost no one else does that. Why do you?
On that 1982 trip, so many things happened on that trip that just opened up my mind. See, Aubryon was one of the first wineries in France to have their own cooper. So they brought me to this little tiny cooperage, about the size of this room, and they made their barrels right there. And I thought, this is really cool. Now, I remember Aubryon always having a spice in the nose. It was distinctive. It wasn't Latour or Margaret. It was Aubryon. You could almost pick it out every year. And I always thought that was probably from the barrels. And so I just assumed someday I want to make my own. I want to make my own spice. I want to make a John Caldwell barrel. And about 6 years ago, a master cooper, Ramiro Herrera, was helping. We barrel ferment. And so he came to pull the heads on about 100 barrels. And one thing led him, he says, I got laid off from Sagan Moreau, and people aren't hiring me. I got too much experience, and that. So I said, well, I've always wanted to make my own barrels. Well, you want to make? I can make your barrels. I'm a master cooper. I can make them without machines. I can do
by hand.
By hand.
The old way.
So I said, well, but gosh, Ramiro, I got to have access to wood because it's only the really good wood that, so you can make a better barrel would be the good wood. So one thing leads to another, and he introduced me to a guy that he used to work with in Sagan Moreau, who was their wood buyer, and he went off and did his own thing. So the three of us got together, made a little deal, and since, gosh, I guess 2013 or so, I sent him to France to make the barrels every February, March. And this is a true story. So the cooperage we use, it's a small family-owned cooperage in Cognac. The owner of the cooperage used to make the barrels at Haut-Brion.
Oh my goodness. Full circle.
Full circle.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool. So you barrel ferment reds, and that is a messy, hard, painstaking, and hence expensive thing to do. Very few people barrel ferment red wines. The only people I can think of right now are Harlan and Rudd who do. Why do you do that?
Well, I had Philippe Melka as my consulting winemaker when we first started. And I'll never forget, he goes to France every year, of course, after harvest. And he came back in, I think it was 2001, and he says, in his French, you know, he says, John, I think maybe we should try barrel fermentation. I just got back from Saint-Emilion, and we tasted some wines that were fermented in the barrel, and they were better than, the same wine was better than in the tank. So, of course, I want to make the best wine in the world. So the next year, I think I ordered 5 barrels, and by God, they were better. So what am I going to do? I'm stuck.
Yeah.
So by 2000, by 2005, we were 100% barrel fermented.
Wow. Now, what trait do you think you possess that has allowed you to be so successful? I mean, your route to success has been circuitous, but boy, it's certainly, you really have been incredibly successful. What do you have personally that has helped that?
Well, that day in April 1981, when I became a grower, I was hooked. And I just wanted to learn. I remember going on vacations and taking back then you didn't have Google. So you had to go to the library and get, old information on rootstocks and trials and all this stuff, and then going to France at least once a year, right from 82 on, sometimes twice. I just wanted to learn. And that has driven me, well, I'm not finished. And that's why I brought the Tannat and the Carmenere for you to try today.
Right, we're definitely going to try those later.
Because it's time that we get off just the cab here in Napa. There's varieties, I think, that could really work. I just found out that Lafite has Marcelon planted in their Chinese vineyard.
That's right.
Now, that's a stretch. So even they are looking at other varieties.
Yeah, climate change will change all of us.
It could change us all. And Marcelon, it's a Cab Grenache grass, and it could work here. So I'm going to plant some.
You're going to plant some, yeah.
Goddamn right, so I can't let that go.
Yeah. Now, last question. What do you think or tell us something that would surprise most people to learn about you?
Gosh, I don't know. Surprise. That means I'm a lot more serious than I come across.
Okay.
I mean, there's shit going on in there, But I'm a joke, I'm a character, right? And I love that part, and I love making people feel good and happy, But there's some serious stuff in there. And that's what I keep wanting to grow with and learn more and make better wines and just keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I can think.
Yeah. Good, John. Well, our full interview with John Caldwell is on WineSpeed.com's People to Know page. Check it out. You'll really enjoy it.